A fireside chat with Marianne Scott, author of Finding Ruby.
I wasn't always a writer. In fact, most of my working career I worked as a purchasing agent, buying steel and parts for the automotive companies, the big three. I always say that there were two types of people that I worked with. One were characters, and then I had my very special characters. I used to think, in fact, what I would do is I would often go around saying, I could write a book. It would be a wonderful memoir. People would be very interested in all my trials and tribulations. So I did some research, and I thought, yes, this would be a really good thing to do. But then I learned that with memoir, you have to be very careful, because people often have different opinions about what the actual truth is. So when I realized that my very special characters might not see the story the same way that I do and decide to take me to court and sue, I decided to put that idea on the back burner. But as time went by, I still had that urge inside of me where I wanted to write. And I knew that I had a lot of stories that I needed to tell. And finally I just said, okay, fine. If it can't be memoir, then it should be fiction. And that's how Finding Ruby got started. Because I had a memory. It was a memory of when I was younger. I remember coming home one day and seeing my father sitting at the television set watching the news as he usually did. But this was different. I saw him sitting there and he was crying. And I wondered, what's the matter? I remember him turning to me with a tear-stained face and saying to me, "It's over." And what of course he meant was that the Berlin Wall had come down, that symbol that the Cold War had ended. Now I knew that my father hated communists, and that was something that he never apologized for. But right at that particular time, I realized that the Cold War is something that you don't easily forget. And when I thought about my dad's experience with the war and the impact it had on him, it got me thinking about spies and the Cold War stories that were out there. And I thought, well, when the Cold War is over, you don't really need spies anymore. So I wondered, what do all these spies do when they're not needed anymore? Do they go on and live normal lives? Do they get out of the force? Do they go on and have families of their own? And how much of what they did back then did they share with their families? The story that I thought up of in my head was about a young woman who didn't know anything about her parents' background. And she just happened to finish school, but she comes home, and all of a sudden, her whole world changes. She finds that her house has been torched, her parents and her little brother killed. But the whole thing gets worse. While she's watching the fire, two men approach her. They're posing as police officers and flashing a badge at her. And they say, "Kathleen Jones, you have to come with us down to the police station." But they don't go to the police station. She finds she's dragged off into a car, she's drugged, and when she wakes up, her whole world has changed. She finds her face in bandages, and they're not calling her Kathleen anymore. All of a sudden, they're calling her Ruby, Ruby Draker.
Finding Ruby is a novel about knowing yourself, accepting change, embracing danger, and taking risks. You never know what life is going to throw at you.